The Armored Core series has always been about customization, and Silent Line Armored Core is no different from previous games in the series. You can still customize your mech to an almost ridiculous degree. You can change the head, the arms, the torso, the legs, weapons, and some of the secondary items. All of these things will have an effect on how your mech performs in combat, how it moves, how quickly it moves. Unfortunately, Silent Line still uses the same control mechanics previous games in the series used, which is to say that the controls are actually pretty bad. They're almost archaic. Silent Line doesn't use the right analog stick to aim, as most games of this type would nowadays. Instead, you have to aim and move around using the left analog stick, and you can move the target up and down by pressing the shoulder buttons. These controls almost defeat the purpose of having a super agile mech in the game's story mode, where you'll undertake a series of different missions, because most of these missions are in sort of confined areas and there's not a lot of room to move around. Some are within city streets, others are within small factories. Obviously there are some levels that are outdoors and you get much more freedom in terms of movement, but it's still really bad. You just feel how unresponsive it is to turn the mech around to target an enemy or to even keep an enemy within your sights while you're strafing. Not surprisingly, this control scheme actually works somewhat well within the game's many versus modes, where you can take on another Armored Core or you can do 2-on-2 matches. This is because the control scheme mirrors that of the Virtual On series from Sega, and since you're only basically looking out for one robot at a time as opposed to several different targets as you would in the story mode, you don't have to quite worry as much about keeping your target within the camera angle. Unfortunately, Silent Line Armored Core also doesn't look all that great. The game looks as though it was a PlayStation 2 launch title. The environments are really bland. The textures are really repetitive. You get sort of the same mundane look throughout all the levels. There's not a whole lot of secondary detail. I mean, you get like little cars on the freeway and things like that. But otherwise, the game is seriously lacking some detail. The models for the Armored Cores themselves look good, but they're also just lacking some serious detail. The soundtrack remains one of Armored Core's bright spots. Even though the sound can be a little bit overdramatic at times, it actually fits the game pretty well in certain situations. For example, you'll be going through this base when you're told to go back to the entrance, and sort of this dramatic music gets you pumping, waiting to see what's going to be waiting for you at the entrance. And the sound effects are pretty standard for a game of this type. I mean, you get all the basic ammo noises, explosions, and missile noises, things like that. It's nothing that really stands out from other games that are available. So while it offers a tremendous amount of freedom in terms of allowing you to create whatever sort of mech that you want, whether you want a super fast, agile mech or kind of a slow but heavily armored one, Silent Line does a great job in that respect. There's just tons of different parts you can choose from. But the controls really just mar the entire experience. They're just so clunky and unresponsive at times that it really sort of makes it difficult to enjoy the rest of the game. If you're willing to overlook the controls, if you've been a fan of the series, then you'll know that the controls are the same, and if you're fine with that, then by all means go get Silent Line. There's a ton of versus modes, there's a ton of single player missions, there's tons of parts to choose from for your mech, but otherwise if you're looking for some other giant robot fighting action, there's so many other better PlayStation 2 games out on the market.